If you've been coming every Sunday this month, you know that our talks have been inspired by one of my favorite books by Wayne Dyer, and it's called You'll See It When You Believe It. It's an old one. And usually I approach talks inspired from books in the order that the book laid it out in, beginning to end, right? But I found a wonderful way to use this particular book as well as many others, and that is to flip through it until my fingers stop. And almost every time when I open to that page, I will find clarity. They call that book roulette, and that is how we approached our talks this month, entirely out of order. So the inspiration for our talks this month most definitely appeared. And I'm sure that those of you who have been here can agree that the concepts we explored were huge, right? They were very, very necessary to creating the life that we wish to experience. I know that my own mind was blown several times along the way, which is kind of extraordinary when you consider that not only have I read this particular book many times from cover to cover, but I also write these sermons, so I'm there when it unfolds. Imagine my surprise when I'm going along my pages and all of a sudden something brand new comes out and I go, that was cool. So something up there or around here drops in there and says, check this out. And my mind is blown. Now right here, I usually take the time to recap what we've learned from week to week so we can get to where we are now. But as I mentioned last week, if I do that here, half of the message will end up being recap, and we'll either run out of time to get to more of those huge revelations I mentioned, or we'll be here for much longer than any of us signed up for. So if you haven't been here Sundays or you want to review, visit our website, santaanitachurch.org, for the audio, or you can watch the video on Facebook. And be sure to like and share those videos. The more people who interact with that content, the more it'll pop up in the feeds of other people, and the more and faster we'll grow. And if you're unable to make it on a Sunday, but you want the live version of the service, it's live streamed on Facebook every week. So you can be in church without actually being at church. Now, I flipped to the page for this week's talk immediately after my final edit of last week. So I knew we would be talking about miracles, which is perfect for today when we celebrate the miracle of Jesus' resurrection after his crucifixion. What better day to remind us that miracles are real? My flip led me to page 223, where Dyer says, I have experienced many synchronistic events that seem to be miracles to those who cannot comprehend how it all fits together. For me, they are simply the result of believing in the universal intelligence that supports all form and allowing it to work in perfect harmony. So when someone says to me, come on, Wayne, be more realistic, my instant response is, I am realistic. I expect miracles. Same. He says, when I began to see thought and form as one, and to see that I am somehow divinely connected to all thought, I saw that thought was something I could use. Now let's stop there for a minute. There's a lot of weight in those first three sentences of this part of the book, and it got me to thinking. Okay, so thought and form are one. I'm having so much trouble with this thing today. Thought and form are one, and it sounds like what he said in our talk from week 2 on page 56. He said, I am firmly convinced that thoughts are things. Thoughts, when properly nourished and internalized, will become a reality in the world of form. You see, we think in pictures, and when these pictures become our inner reality, when we learn the how and why of this imaging process, then we are on our way to success in unexpected in common hours. That's a nod to Thoreau. So thought and form are one. Thoughts are things. Now, where I'm going with this is an area that seems to ruffle the feathers of some of the more conservatively Christian folks I've spoken with about such things, but I'm going there anyway. And I can't think of a better day to reiterate the teachings of Jesus on this subject exactly as they appear in the Gospels of the Bible, ruffled feathers or not. And why are feathers ruffled? Because if one suspends their belief in what so many spiritual leaders have taught in churches of every Christian denomination, if they suspend their belief in that and then look at what Jesus said according to the Gospels, it can fly in the face of what some teach about Jesus. It's the difference between what Jesus taught and what people teach about Jesus. We can all agree that our master teacher, Jesus the Christ, was extraordinary. He was the embodiment of divine love. He walked in love and peace and trust, and his life and works sustain us still today, and I imagine they will sustain us for as long as humans walk the earth. But here's where that divide happens. Jesus did and was all of those things. But he said that God is the Father of all of us, that we are all his brothers and sisters, not beneath him, but walking hand in hand with him. Further, he did not say that only his followers were God's children. From the book of Romans, chapter 10, verses 12 and 13, there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. Gentiles are anybody who is not Jewish in Bible speak. The same Lord is Lord of all and richly blesses all who call upon him. But here's the biggest divide of all of it. Jesus said that each and every one of us have the same power he did. We could do everything he did and even more. Some faiths teach that Jesus is the only one who can do these things, that anyone who believes that they can do the same works as Jesus is blaspheming. But he himself said it. It is chronicled throughout the New Testament, especially in the Gospels, which are believed to be first-person accounts from the disciples who walked with him. And here are some examples. From Mark, chapter 9, verse 23. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. Again in Mark, chapter 11, verse 24. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And Matthew, chapter 21, verse 22, he reiterates what Mark said. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Again in Matthew, chapter 17, verse 20, he replied, because you have so little faith. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will be done. Nothing will be impossible for you. Another, in Matthew again, chapter 21, verse 21, Jesus replied, truly, I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, brought it back to life, but also you can say to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done. Now from John, chapter 14, verse 12, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me, here it is, will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these. Also in Matthew is one of my favorite stories. It's chapter 14, verses 25 through 31. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. Disciples were in a boat. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, Tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "Ye of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And yet another wonderful allegorical example of one of Jesus's most fundamental teachings comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, verses 40 through 50. Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus said. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she would not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." While Jesus was still speaking, someone came out from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," he said. "Don't bother the teacher anymore." And hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just believe, and she will be healed." He said it. Jesus said these things. So I have to wonder how it became blasphemous to believe what he actually said by so many Christian denominations when those very same people, some of them are so quick to believe and, dare I say, weaponize or justify their judgment or hatred other parts of the Bible which fly in the face of everything Jesus taught. He said in a nutshell that thoughts, beliefs, what you believe become things. They become real. One of my two most favorite quotes of Ernest Holmes is from The Science of Mind on page 289. My first favorite is the opening sentence. "We all dream of the day when faith and science can walk hand in hand from the invisible to the visible." I love that. But on 289, he says, "To the one who can perfectly practice inaction, all things are possible." Perfectly practiced inaction. That is using your thought, your mind, to create your reality, using your mind to block out any thoughts of failure or bad, right? Focusing only on the reality you expect to see, which then absolutely will happen. And like Reverend Jerry said, when you decide that it's going to look like this and be shaped like this, and it's going to have exactly these details, you're limiting yourself to this when something so much greater may be trying to come. Paint the picture, but leave the details to the universe. Now back to Wayne Dyer, picking up where he left off on page 224, he says, "When I began to see thought and form as one, and to see that I am somehow divinely connected to all thought, I saw that thought was something I could use. This became increasingly clear as I began to meditate and seemingly leave my body for extended periods of time. I experienced the world of thought unencumbered by form. At this point, I started to experience the tremendous power inherent in our thinking capacity. Soon, I knew that thoughts were something more than mysterious amorphous, items in our heads. You know, have you noticed every talk I pick one word that is gonna stumble me, and sometimes it comes out, other times not so much. This one didn't work, and I know the word. So mysterious, amorphous items in our heads, I realized that thought is the very stuff of the universe. It is energy, as is everything else in our universe. It has unique vibrating characteristics, as does other energy, but it's unavailable to me through my five senses. That sixth sense, that thought has become a new awareness for me. Now, I want to reintroduce you to those incredible images from the Webb telescope that I showed you during our first talk this month. Do you remember the first shot of the baby star nursery where stars are being born? And then the other shot where the star is dying and visibly transforming back into the very stardust which makes up the nursery. Let's call thought stardust. In reality, it and everything else is energy, God energy. Every time you think a thought, if it is something you truly wish to experience in your life, sit with it. Be with it until it feels so much a part of you that its presence is almost palpable. Then, not letting go of that feeling, release it and wait for it to appear, knowing that it shall. And that's the key, right? I use shall on purpose. Have you ever looked at legal documents and it says shall all over the place? Shall says there ain't no negotiation. This is what's going to happen. There's no other option. Shall is set in stone. So that's that key, right? Knowing that it will, never doubting it for even a moment, because we don't want to find ourselves halfway from the thought to the thing only to doubt and find ourselves drowning like poor Thomas walking on water, Dewey. Dyer says on page 267, what you think about expands. And that was Peter walking. Why am I looking at my notes? Hold on a sec, because I got to look back at what I wrote, because I think that was Peter. And it's one of my favorites. Was it Peter? It was Peter. I thought so. Look at that. I thought so. So on page 267, he says, what you think about expands. Thus, if your thoughts are on getting all that you can and beating the other guy who you believe is trying to do you in, then you are constantly thinking about, worrying about, and planning on the notion of deception. Your thoughts are focused on the dishonesty of the other guy and the callousness of the world. That is what will expand in your life, because that is what you are thinking about. Consequently, you will find yourself getting more and more fearful about being cheated, insuring yourself against the possibility, hiring attorneys to protect you, and loading yourself up with adversaries. You literally put yourself in an adversarial relationship with almost everyone that you meet. And sure enough, you find this sort of thing continuing to expand. That sound familiar to anybody? Anybody know someone like that? I do. Now, take a look at the opposite approach to your life. Your thoughts, you, now shift into a new perspective. You're not thinking about your own quotas, your own acquisitions, your financial picture at all. You're instead giving away what you have inside. That is harmony and acceptance. Since you are not looking to gain anything from anyone, you have nothing to fear. Suppose someone enters your life who might be determined to cheat you, and that person encounters in you someone who truly cares about them as a human being, the likelihood of the cheating behavior will be dramatically lessened when there is no expectation of it. Looking for harmony and cooperation and getting it from others will most likely result in your receiving the same kind of treatment. You will not attract enemies because you're not putting yourself in an adversarial position with anyone, regardless of what anyone sends you. Giving becomes the key to creating relationships in which forgiveness is unnecessary. This truly works. Bear with me before allowing any of your encultured skepticism to creep in here. And I know it's hard to swallow the thought that with all that seems wrong in our world, we can expect good and wonders and things like miracles in our daily lives. I get the bleak picture the warriors, and politicians and pundits paint in vivid colors before the public eye, inspiring fear and anger and so much cruelty. I know that sometimes the noise of shouted opinions gets too loud for eyes to see the beauty, but it's there. In fact, despite how things may seem, there's immeasurably more beauty and perfection and peace and good in the world than there is bad. And what is bad anyway? We learned early on in our talks this month that everything happens exactly as it's meant to happen. Nothing that must happen can be stopped, and so everything that must happen will absolutely happen. So if everything happens for a reason, how do I explain the big, scary monster we're being told the world is? How do I explain all the evidence in the world that the big, scary monster actually exists? The violence, the hatred, the judgment, why is that supposed to happen if everything is part of the divine plan? My answer? We're waking up. That scary noise, that's our alarm. Throughout history, stories have been recorded of great wars and famine and plague, and heroes and miracles have arisen from every one of those stories. Our heroes and miracles are being jostled into action. We are among those heroes. We are the bringers of miracles. Jesus said it, not me. There's a really remarkable book called Pronoia is the Antidote for Paranoia, How the Whole World is Conspiring to Shower You with Blessings by Rob Bresney. And he's in agreement with me. It's kind of a creative, free-flowing, yet brilliantly organized textbook meets workbook, meets stream of consciousness poet, meets celebration of humanity's unrecognized collective and individual power potential. It is far more than a book, is what I'm saying, and I highly recommend it. And no, for those asking, it is not in the bookstore because, frankly, it's expensive and we don't have the budget. But you can get it anywhere else, pretty much. Amazon's great. Pronoia. Pronoia is the opposite of paranoia. If people experiencing paranoia believe that the world is conspiring against them, people experiencing pronoia believe that the world is conspiring to do them good. A state of positive pronoia is where I'm hoping we're headed in our consciousness after our talks this month. And it's where I believe Jesus was coming from when he told us we too would do great things. Listen to this from page 3 of this book. As heaven and earth come together, As the dream time and daytime merge, we register the shockingly exhilarating fact that we are in charge of creating a new earth. Not in some distant time or far away place, but right here and right now. In the new earth we're creating, we need lusty compassion and ecstatic duty, ingenious love and insurrectionary beauty. We need radical curiosity and reverent pranks, voracious listening and ferocious thanks. So I'm curious, my fellow creators. Since you and I are in charge of making a new earth, not just breaking down the dying culture, where do we begin? What stories do we want at the heart of our experiments? What questions will be our oracles? Here's what I say. In this new earth we're creating, we will ridicule the cult of doom and gloom and embrace the cause of zoom and boom. We will laugh at the stupidity of evil and hate, and we will summon the brilliance to praise and create. No matter how upside down it all may appear, we'll have no fear because we know this big secret. All of creation is conspiring to shower us with blessings. Life is crazy in love with us, brazenly and innocently in love with us. The universe always gives us exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. I'm allergic to dogma. I thrive on riddles. Any idea I believe, I reserve the right to disbelieve as well. But more than any other vision I've ever tested, pronoia describes the way the world really is. It's wetter than water, stronger than death, and truer than any news. It smells like cedar smoke in the autumn rain, and if you close your eyes right now, you can feel it shimmering like the aurora borealis in your organs and muscles. Its song is your blood's song. Some people argue that life is strife and suffering is normal. Others swear we're born sinful and only heaven can provide us with the peace that passes understanding. But pronoia says that being alive on this rough, green and brown planet is the highest honor and privilege. It's an invitation to work wonders and perform miracles that aren't possible in any nirvana, promised land, or afterlife. I'm not exaggerating or indulging in poetic metaphor when I tell you we are already living in paradise. Visualize it if you dare. The sweet stuff that quenches all of our longing is not far away in some other time and place. It's right here and right now. Poet Elizabeth Browning knew the truth when she said, "Earth's crammed with heaven." Let's come together and resurrect this world to the perfection of our wildest dreams. Happy Easter.